If a game advertises itself as a stealthy experience, is it a failing if said game has superb combat? In the age of play your way, the ideal version would be to have a perfectly balanced enjoyment no matter what build you go for. Unfortunately, that's not how reality works. You're not meant to go Rambo in Hitman, Metal Gear, and Dishonored, and you're not meant to stealth in Cyberpunk, Skyrim, and the new Assassin's Creed games. It's only natural that one playstyle will have more polish than another, and by letting the player choose their approach, developers risk making the player experience worse. How stealth games used to operate was that the combat was incredibly clunky and unintuitive, so players would want to get better at stealth because the action left too much to be desired. At the same time, you can't have the player instantly fail once they're spotted, as that would just annoy them because the game demanded perfection from them. Nowadays, it's a struggle to imagine AAA devs purposefully and intentionally making part of their game wrong, but it's seemingly possible. I hope this is praise and not an insult, but the combat for Assassin's Creed Mirage was awful, and I hope it was because the game was trying to return to its stealthy roots. On the other hand, Ghost of Tsushima might have the best combat in the open world genre, which is almost egregious considering how important stealth is to the game's narrative. If Jin doesn't spend a decent amount of time stabbing people in the back, then he never becomes the Ghost. He's just a regular samurai cutting down invaders as he sees fit. Then the wedge between him and Shimura never forms, because he never does anything to dishonor himself, so the game forces you to use deception to win and drive the plot forward. But to me, it seemed illogical, because Jin was acting completely out of character compared to how I had played him. I had been getting lost in the rhythmic trance of the combat, and the game treated me like I'd been an assassin for the entire experience. Sucker Punch going insane on their combat actively ruined the game for me because it clashed with the intended experience they had thought I'd have, where I balanced stealth and swordplay. Another game with ridiculously fun combat is Metal Gear Solid 5. This game actively discourages violent play through its scoreboard, yet offers so many wacky and inventive weapons that avoiding them is denying yourself the most fun in the game. I swear to God, calling in an airstrike while the final countdown plays from the loudspeakers is some of the most gut-bustingly hilarious escapades I've ever had. Not to mention that things like the Rocket Fist and D-Walker are useless on a stealth playthrough, despite being some of the most incredible things Kojima has designed. But the game discourages me from playing this way every time I want to by decreasing my heroism, not to mention the scorn from characters and the abysmal mission rankings I get for indulging myself when I have fun with the amazing tools that the game gives me. Kojima missed the point of making the series open world, so I could choose my way to play. While I can still play however I want, I don't need the game to judge me and insult me whenever I want to let loose on some enemies. The game directly tells me that I'm playing it wrong, so why is it even an option for me to play it wrong? If this is such a taboo in Kojima's mind, why are there so many mechanics and weapons with chaotic destruction in mind? However, there is a game that, while still having an intended way to play, still gives value to the people who play it the wrong way, and that's Dishonored. Dishonored is another game that's primarily stealth-focused, but has skill tree upgrades that are only useful on bloodthirsty runs. While the melee combat is terrible on its own, when you combine it with the powers of the Outsider, the game transforms into a vampire action game as you slink from the shadows, brutalize your foes, and then pounce onto the next. Instead of hiding from guards before they see you, the game becomes about killing said guards before they react to you. And while this isn't the intended way to play, and the game judges you by showing the city fall apart due to your actions, Arcane goes much further than just telling you off. The entire game shifts around your tyrannical playstyle. The developers are incentivizing you to play the wrong way so you can see what the dark side of the game looks like, instead of just disapprovingly letting you go on to the next mission. Dishonored deliberately starts you off with poor combat to scare players into a low chaos dev-intended stealth playthrough, but as you upgrade your character more, you can see an evil playthrough form in your mind, and once you beat the game, you replay it to see how the other side plays out. And it works so well, there's such a delicious violence to it. and since you're indulging your destructive tendencies, the game reflects that in the setting, creating what might be one of the most replayable linear games in history. So ultimately, I think stealth games can have excellent head-on combat, but the player should have to earn that combat so that the majority are encouraged to avoid it and play the game the intended way. I'll be back in 2 days. If you want more Dishonored content, here's a video comparing the hatred felt in Dishonored with that in The Last of Us Part 2.